Hey guys, we get a lot of questions about how we set up our GoPros and what kind of equipment we use around them. So in this video, we're going to show you how to run your GoPro off of an external battery so that you can run all day without having to swap out the batteries inside the GoPro, which really don't last very long. Let's dive in. If you use your GoPro very much, you know that the stock batteries just don't last that long. The battery for the Hero 9, which is the bigger one, gets you maybe an hour and a half. I think it's about 1700 milliamp hours. The smaller battery for the Hero 8 lasts maybe an hour on a good day. That's just not very much. Even if you carry 4 or 5 of these, you've got this kind of pain in the ass process of having to take your helmet off, pull the camera out of the bracket or mount if you run one, get the battery out, swap them with something in your backpack or in your pocket, and get the whole thing put back together. For a lot of us who are keeping pretty good pace on the trail and don't want to be that guy that's holding everybody up, that's just really not an option on the trail. So what do? For us, a great option is to plug directly into one of these external battery banks. These are the same kinds of things you might use for travel with your cell phone, etc. You can get them all over Amazon. You can buy them at every Walmart and gas station and whatever. They're really easy to find. Most of them are okay quality. It doesn't really matter what size you use. You just got to do the math to figure out how big of a battery pack you need for the number of hours of riding that you do. Now, our typical ride lasts anywhere from 3 hours to maybe 8. We just finished the Big Bear Trail ride this last weekend. We're 10 hours on the bike, ran the in-camera the entire time without stopping it. That's pretty impressive, and that requires a larger battery pack, but you do the math for you. If you figure that the 1750 milliamps that come in the Hero 9 battery get you an hour and a half, it's pretty simple to extrapolate out from there. I like to use a 20,000 milliamp power pack because that way I'm real sure that I'm never going to run out of this and have to start changing batteries in the GoPro to keep me going. However, in all honesty, this is probably overkill. If you do the math on it, 6 hours of 1750 milliamp batteries gets you somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,000. So something half this big would probably get most of you through most of your rides. Now, on the other side, if you're doing really long adventure rides, multi-day setups, things like that, you may need to go even bigger, but I have a better suggestion, and that's to also get a solar panel. And when you stop for the day, or while you're riding, if you're doing something that's slower pace, you can sort of hang your solar panel off your backpack or something like that. They make these really cool solar panels. Basically will charge any USB device, 5-volt device. It'll charge your phone, it'll charge your GoPro batteries. You can't necessarily run your GoPro directly off of it, but you can charge the batteries and you can charge your battery pack and you can charge your cell phone at night. Another option might be to plug directly into the bike, which is something we'll explore in a future video. I do have a USB socket that I have not yet installed on my bike, so that's something that we'll try to figure out at some point. Now, of course, the immediate question that comes to mind when we start talking about running a GoPro for this many hours in a row is what the hell do you do with all the footage? First, where do you store it? And second, how do you edit all that? In terms of storage, it's actually really easy. SD cards, the micro SD cards, have become extremely cheap, unbelievably cheap on Amazon. I just picked up a 512 gigabyte card that's half a terabyte for like 50 bucks on Amazon. This is name brand, like Samsung card, right? So really good stuff. 16 hours of 4K footage will fit on that card, no problem. That's plenty for most of the riding that we do. Now, in terms of editing, it's actually not as hard as you'd think for 2 reasons. One, GoPro has a really weird system of file storage, a naming convention that breaks up segments in weird ways. This means that if you run the camera continuously, you actually have a continuous stream of files, but every time you start and stop the camera, when you start it again, you get a new file name that breaks the sort of time sequence, the timeline of those videos, and jumbles things around. So it's actually easier to figure out which clips go where if you run the camera for longer continuous stretches. The other thing is you don't necessarily need to keep all of that footage. What we do is edit out the really interesting stuff within a few days of the ride when it's still fresh in our mind, and then feel free to dump the rest of the footage. You'll end up being able to scroll through really quickly, scan for the stuff that you know happened that was fun, something you want to post on Instagram or the YouTube video you want to cut. The rest of it you probably don't need, and that's totally fine. You can throw it in cold storage like we do. We have these like 8 terabyte backup hard drives that we cycle through every year, or you can simply delete the files. You may never need them again. Okay, so in terms of the technical setup, let's run through how this is actually all connected together. So, of course, we're using the Wannabe's mounts that we make. This is the 60 ATR2 helmet. So we've got this beautiful mount on here. In this case, I run the GoPro Media Mod. Now, this is the GoPro Hero 9. I really like the Media Mod because it's one of the best external mics that I've found. They put this little windsock on it, which helps a lot. Anything short of like freeway speed, you pretty much reduce or get rid of most of the wind noise there. And because it's directional, You can choose to focus on the sound in front of you, or in my case, I bias it towards the rear mic. There's a setting in the firmware, which means that it really nicely picks up the voice coming out of my helmet, which is perfect for me. Now, the media mod is really cool for another reason. You can see how the plug on the back directly sticks backwards. There's a couple of other options that we have used in the past where the plug sticks out from the side. It's extremely prone to getting broken off. You can see here sticking out from the back, it's very nicely protected up against the helmet. It's out of the way. Branches and stuff pretty much aren't gonna grab that. And there's not a lot of flex. There's not a lot of, the wire's not hanging or dangling from it. So it's a really good protected position. So for a lot of reasons, we recommend that if you're serious about getting GoPro footage, you run the media mod. It gives you those connections, gives you the mic. It's just really a nice setup. From there, we have this little USB-C to USB-A extension. I just started using this, and the reason is, before we were plugging straight into the camera and running all the way down to the battery pack. The problem is every time you take your helmet off, you've got to wiggle this plug out of your GoPro, and you start to put a lot of stress on this. This starts to wear out, but it's also kind of a difficult thing to get to. I run my camera tipped all the way back like that. This really isn't that easy to get your hands onto when it's on helmet and everything. It's also hard to find, right? You're like wiggling around here trying to figure that out. So what I've done is set up this really nice quick connect. Use 3M tape to stick that to the side of the helmet, just like our mounts. And that gives me this option of just pulling that out. And that's how I can remove my helmet and not have to worry about my helmet being corded to something like a cyborg, which actually is kind of funny how much electronics we run on these when you count all the stuff to hook the sun up and the headphones. Good times. Now, from there, it's just a standard USB-A to USB-A 6-foot cord, really standard stuff. Buy them on Amazon for, I don't know, 10 bucks or something for a decent one. And that plugs into the battery bank. Now, quick note about the plugs on these battery banks. Most of them have several different plug options, but not all of them push a charge. Some are meant only for incoming voltage. Now, there might be more expensive battery packs that kind of solve that problem, but on this particular one, only the USB-A, these bigger square plugs, output voltage. The inputs, the way to charge this, is on the USB-C. So unfortunately, you can't run USB-C to USB-C in the camera and get power to the camera because this USB-C port does not output any voltage. It's only for bringing voltage into the battery to charge it. So that's something to keep in mind. So thus the A to A and the little adapter that we use. From there, I just stash the battery in my backpack somewhere. So it's sitting on my back. Got the cord running through the backpack straps, just like the water hose for your hydration pack. Comes out and plugs now into that little adapter on the helmet, and it's pretty much out of the way. A lot of you are probably wondering at this point, doesn't it catch on branches and stuff like that, get ripped off? I've had that happen once. Actually, I've had it catch a couple of times. I've had it ripped out one time. It's not as much of a problem as you'd think. First of all, it's typically here in your backpack straps running kind of close to you or underneath this like shelf, the edge of your helmet. So it's actually not as exposed as you would think. And typically you're ducking and dodging with your head so that you're not just taking branches in the face anyway. So I really have not had a problem with that at all. The hardest thing to remember is when you take your helmet off, you've got to disconnect. But when you use a cable that's this long, you've got lots of extra cable. So a couple of things about that, you can probably get away with like a 3-foot, maybe on the shorter side. The problem is with a 3-foot, you turn your head all the way to the side. You've got the strap running all through your backpack, or the cord running all through your backpack straps and everything. When you turn your head like that, it's getting yanked out, and we've had problems with that. So running these 6-foot cables, it's more than you need, but it gives you some, I pulled my helmet off and I forgot to disconnect it and I tugged a little bit. It just pulls out of the pocket of your backpack and gives you that extra play. And it's really easy to manage. What I do with the extra is literally just roll it up like that, stick that in the backpack, connect it to the battery, and just the whole thing just goes in a pocket with my cell phone or something. And it's pretty much an all-day power supply that I mostly don't have to think about after that. There's one really annoying part about running this whole setup, and that's the way that GoPro operates the power button. Now, if you're using the GoPro just with a battery inside, you can hit the quick button on the top, and it'll start up in whatever mode you preset or whatever mode you left it in last, and it'll start recording. No problem, easy peasy, you're done recording, you hit the button, it turns off. If the battery runs out of power, it of course turns off on its own. That's really kind of a nice functional system for an action camera, right? Unfortunately, running external power breaks that. I have no idea why. I called GoPro and asked them. Maybe future firmware updates will fix this, but it seems to be kind of common across both cameras. Here's what happens when you run external power. When you first plug in the GoPro, it will turn on. It will not beep. You will not know that it has turned on. It's very annoying. It has turned on. Now, with the Hero 8, you can go ahead and start recording right away by hitting that top record button, just as if you had turned the GoPro on manually using the side button, and everything's hunky-dory. Unfortunately, with the Hero 9 that I run, that's not quite so simple. I don't know exactly how long the time is. You have to wait a few seconds after you plug it in before you hit record. If you don't, the camera will beep like it has started to record, but then it will freeze. You will not know it has frozen unless you check it, and you could run hours with a frozen camera that thinks it's on, that you think is on, without getting any footage. It's extremely annoying. I always have somebody check that it's actually recording before I take off down the trail to make sure I'm not missing footage. Is it recording?
Yeah.
Recording properly? Yep. Am I recording? Yep. Recording? Yep. The trick I've found is to wait 15, 20, 35 seconds, I don't know, a minute. I'm really not sure what the minimum is there. I know the camera will automatically turn off after a few minutes, so you can't wait too long, but give it some time before you hit record. If you do that consistently, you should have pretty good luck with it, especially if you keep the latest firmware on there. And I haven't had too many problems. I really haven't had problems with it shutting off on the trail either. For example, I think the longest continuous period I've run it's maybe like 6 hours straight without even turning it off, without touching it. As long as you leave the cord plugged in and everything connected and you just run the camera, especially if you leave your helmet on your head, you should be good to go. A couple of battery management notes. I do leave the battery in there when I run this process. If you don't, even weirder things happen with the power button that I haven't fully explored. So leave the battery in it. It's also kind of nice because if you somehow accidentally disconnect power, or if your battery bank runs out or something like that, you've got an hour or so, hour and a half in case of the Hero 9 left inside the stock batteries. Now, what can happen sometimes is it's pretty finicky about how it's plugged in. If the cable's wiggled or something while it's recording, it might stop taking external power and flip over to internal power, and it will not revert again. In order to get it to use the external power, I'm pretty sure you have to turn it off, plug it in, turn it back on. So what can happen sometimes is you'll knock that cord, putting your helmet on at the gas station or something like that, and not realize that you're not actually charging from your external power source. You'll run off the internal battery for the hour or hour and a half that you have on there, and your camera will beep and shut down. It's not that big of a deal because typically you'll hear it. The beeps on the Hero 9 are particularly loud. They're much louder than the Hero 8. So even at trail pace, usually you'll hear your camera beep, 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 shutting down. And you can pull over and figure out that, shit, it like came loose or whatever happened, or I don't know, I didn't do the right sequence or something like that. There's a kind of weird little things that can go wrong. But you plug it back in, give it 2 or 3 minutes to charge. You can ride while that's happening. Get 2-3% back in the battery, which happens pretty quickly. The internal battery will charge while it's connected to this when the camera's off. So a little bit there. We'll get this charged back up just a little bit and start it. And this will actually, that you can run the camera the rest of the day with 3% left on this battery, as long as your external power cord stays connected and you're good to go. I've done that. If you run it long enough, even while the camera's running, the internal battery will actually charge up a little bit. It's very slow because most of the power is going to run the camera, but I'm pretty sure it will charge. Again, I haven't done any math around that, but keep that in mind. Last note, always carry spares, spare cables, spare batteries. These get a little bit heavy, so I'm not sure you need to carry a spare of these. Depends how critical the footage is, it wouldn't hurt. We carry an extra GoPro, an older model that we've got laying around. We carry an extra media mod for it. We carry extra audio cables. We carry a little adapter that I can plug into my cell phone that I can tweak memory cards with, so I can erase memory cards, reformat them, move files on and off. We've had cards go bad mid-ride. We were actually doing an adventure ride, second day in, halfway back, and the card died. And that's when I started carrying the device to actually mess with the cards through the phone, so that you can clean those card errors up and keep recording footage of critical events. But just carry spares. I've got this whole box of stuff. There's all kinds of things in here. I carry a whole bunch of extra memory cards. I've got memory cards for days and days on there. This thing's waterproof, so those are nice and protected. I've got extra cables. I've got the mic adapter that we use to run just in case something goes wrong with the media mod. I've got this little bit which I can plug into the USB-C port of my phone. And with that, I can actually format memory cards, move files off of them, do card management and stuff like that. I've had cards go bad, so that's kind of nice. When you're running the media mod, you can't fit the door on the GoPro, so it's not waterproof, so that's something to keep in mind. So I carry the doors. If I want to stick the GoPro in the water, I'll take it out and put the door on it. Carry extra screws. Carry this little wrench. Sometimes, you know, you leave these in the sun or something like that, and this nut will get tight, you know, vibrations from riding or whatever. The wrench will help you get it off. With our mounts, I don't recommend cranking down on them with the wrench. They're only plastic. And if you crank away on the wrench, you'll break the nut loose that's inside those. If that happens to you, hit us up, we'll hook you up. But yeah, spare batteries. So all kinds of stuff. Basically a whole little like electronic toolkits is important to us as the actual tools that we fix our bike with. If you're serious about getting video footage, you've probably got a setup similar to this, and maybe these are a few pieces that can help keep you on the trail. And that's it, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to check out the link down in the description below to these awesome mounts. We make them for about 40 helmets, and we're adding to that list really quickly. If you don't see your helmet on the list, hit us up. We're happy to figure out how to make one for you. That's not a problem. We're always expanding. These mounts are great. They stay out of the way of your vents. They give you the perfect point of view angle. Fit every helmet, custom, no holes, zip ties only because I've got a bunch of extra stuff on here. No drilling or screwing up your helmet in any way. They're really nice. Check those out. Hit us up if you have any questions. Thanks so much for watching. We appreciate a like and subscribe if you feel like we've earned it, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.